What's happening, YouTube? Tonight, I guess I'm kind of in my feelings, but kind of in a good way. I'm in my feelings because I was listening to Damon John's new book, Rise and Grind, and I haven't got all the way through it. I just started listening to it. I'm about an hour into it. Yeah, I'm about an hour into the book, and he has some real interesting concepts that I kind of agree with when it comes to entrepreneurship and just making it out here on your own. And like there's just this web of things and ideas that are going off inside my head, like that I'm gonna try and connect in this one video, if it makes sense. Y'all gonna have to forgive me, but I promise you, if you stick with me through this video, which will probably be a 2-part series, because I don't know if I'll be able to put all these concepts together and wrap up my ideas and make bridges where they should be and demolish bridges where they shouldn't be, all in one video. So I'm gonna do my best, but stick with me. So one of the things that I kind of started to think about when I started to listen to the book is that most successful entrepreneurs have a lot of mental issues, I guess you want to call them, whether it be ADHD, dyslexia, ADHD and dyslexia are the two big ones right now that are real popular and everybody wants to have, you know what I'm saying? And I kind of feel like some people use it as a vice to say, all right, well, this is why I can't do it, or this is why I'll only reach this level of success. You can be successful if you have those vices, but you put a self-limiting belief on yourself. And he actually went over that in the book too. He was talking, I actually stopped on the part where he was talking about this boy that was born without arms, and he taught himself to play piano and stuff like that, and type on the keyboard and play games and shit. And the reason he learned how to do that shit is because his parents told him that he was normal. He didn't even know he had a condition until he was like 18, or so he says in the book. So you got those two type of people. You got the people with the disability that use it as a vice and a crutch or an excuse as to why they didn't get somewhere. And then you also have the ones that use it as a tool to drive them harder to achieve success. And it's kind of a weird thing, because when it comes to success in entrepreneurship and having multiple businesses and capitalistic ventures, it's kind of crazy to me, because he said that people like that are exactly like sharks. Going back to the book, referencing the first couple chapters of the book, he was like, sharks really are like entrepreneurs. And at one point I did kind of disagree with that, and that's part of that is just me not wanting to be a part of the group think, like everybody wants to be a shark. I watched endless seasons of Shark Tank. I won't lie, it got boring to me after maybe about the first half of the first season. Not boring in the sense of, you know, getting tired of seeing the ideas and stuff like that. That's what actually keeps me engaged, seeing the different ideas and businesses that people come up with. But I was bored in the sense of the math behind it. I still get surprised at some of the deals that these people turn down. And you know, just a little side note, man, like if Mr. Wonderful ever offers you a deal, you are set for life. Like, I don't understand how some people, you know, turn down some of those deals that Mr. Wonderful gives out. Like, if he steps to you and he offers you he offers you any type of deal, but he has to take over 51% and then he wants a royalty, just do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so many people start businesses, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back to my original point, but I just got to get this out the way. You know, that he got his nickname Mr. Wonderful because everybody thinks his deals are so bad because he wants royalties and he always has to take ownership. But at that level of the game, like, because it's levels to this shit, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, Mark Cuban is the big dog on the deck, you know, on the panel. He make the most noise, and I think, I'm not sure whose net worth is higher, him or Mr. Wonderful, but at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, like, when it comes to major distribution and licensing deals, you know, the reason he asked for 51% is because I forget what episode I saw him in, and he made it make sense to me. He was like, because he really wanted to help this dude out. He was like, well, in order for me to help you, I need to have ownership of that company. I need 51%. So that way these major companies that I have a partnership with will know that I can execute and that there won't be anything holding me back. And, you know, that's the only reason. But as far as the company, you still own 49% of it. I just need to be able to make decisions without you. And, you know, like, at that level of the game, that's when your product or your idea has pretty much taken full advantage of exponential growth. Like, you're gonna be distributed in a lot of stores, major, like, you're connected to a network that's just major. And so many people are so wrapped up in having their idea or their baby, so to speak, being taken away from them because somebody has one more percentage point or one more basis point in control than you do. You know what I'm saying? So you'd rather be a slave to something that you created, which is better than being a slave to something that somebody else has created, which is a job. But you'd rather be a slave to something that you have created than, you know, let something that you have created work for you. You know what I'm saying? And wrapping that back up to my point about you know, ADHD and doing the math and figuring out certain things and doing your research before you get into any business, and how most people have multiple mental disorders that end up being successful is, you know, I got bored with watching Shark Tank once I reverse engineered the math. Like, they would, whenever you go on the Shark Tank, like, I'm gonna drop gems for whoever has an idea for Shark Tank, right? Or a business that they think they want to go on Shark Tank. Here's how you catch their attention. Like, you don't want to be too far from the bid. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're on the bid ask spread, they're on the bid, you're on the ask side. You know what I'm saying? And you want to be like right there at that mid price. So, like, say you have a company, right? And we'll just use simple numbers just so everybody understands the concept, right? If your company sold $1,000 worth of product or made $1,000 worth of revenue last year, or at the end of the year, then at its basic level, that's what your company is worth. And I'm gonna tie all this back into trucking, right? So when you go in looking for a loan or something like that, like a growth loan, then, excuse me, I'm trying to do some math real quick. Oh shit. Okay, well, let's say just to make the math work, say you made $900, okay, in your business last year, then that's what your business is worth. So when you go to these sharks and you're trying to get operating capital and become partners with them, you don't want to ask for too much money, right? And trust me, this applies to more stuff, and this applies to like Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm gonna tie all that stuff into here, right? So at its basic form, you're worth $900, right? You go in, you do your pitch. All right, well, how much do you want? All right, well, I want. Let me just do the math one more time just to make sure. Okay. I want $3,000 for 30% of my company, right? All right. Well, that's like spot on. You're sitting right on top of the ass. You may get a nibble. They may perk up and they may ask you a few more questions, but at the end of the day, the question they're going to ask you is how much did you make in sales at the end of the year? And if your answer is anything over $900, you lost them already, because they already know you're not capable of doing the math and figuring out what it is you should be offering these venture capitalists or these angel investors. And you have a good idea, you may have a good product, you may even have sales, but at a larger scale, you may not be capable of performing, and the business will only be successful for a certain amount of time. You see what I'm saying? And I figured that out by, I started doing the math backwards. I started reverse engineering it. Basically what I did was I found out by listening to the sharks what they were counter offering, and saying it by counter offering and telling the person pitching, what they should have made in sales. I just did the math. All right, well, the amount of the loan divided by, or the amount of the loan, or how much money you made divided by the percentage that you want to give away will give you the amount that you should ask for. Like I say, if you made $900 in a year and you want to give away maybe 30% of the company, well, what is 30% of the company worth over time? Well, you divide 900 by 30%, you get $3,000. You see what I'm saying? And how that ties into trucking is, like, I was thinking about what my end game was, and the end game in for the trucking company, or our trucking company, because it's not just mine alone, it was to be financially independent well, financially secure. I won't say we're necessarily financially independent, and financial freedom is the end goal. Like I say, everything is levels. Is levels to all that shit, including financial freedom and levels of money. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I thought about what the end game was, and it's like, well, should we build the company to sell? Should we build this trucking company just to work for the rest of our lives? And like, I'm not a fan of working for the rest of my life. I'm sorry. I just don't want to do it. You know. But when it comes to the end game in trucking, it's like, all right, you have to reverse engineer, so to speak. Like, I feel like people that have these mental disorders that are these such wonderful entrepreneurs, I think it's actually simpler than what people make it out to be. But most people are so lost and so fascinated by the story that they missed small little simple things that just make a difference. I feel like a lot of the successful people, they just start with the end game, which is the purpose of a vision board, right? You write down your goals, long term and short term, on a vision board. So not only can you see them daily and do something every day to try and accomplish those long and short term goals in a with the purpose of scratching each one off as you accomplish them. That is, not only is it for you to see every day to motivate action, it also plays a role in manifestation and putting things out into the universe, right? Well, part of the part of that manifestation is visualizing where you'll end up. You see what I'm saying? And with this trucking, all right, well, if I'm going to visualize where I end up, if I end up wanting to get out of the truck in a couple years, or just get out of the truck and let this be a perpetual system that makes money for me, then what do I have to do? Okay, well, that would mean I would have to have drivers. I would have to have some type of system in place to where all of this stuff could operate without me, because that's just kind of that's where I'm at when it comes to thinking about, all right, well, my money makes money for me and I don't have to worry about anything. I have a driver manager, I have dispatchers, I have drivers, I have plenty of trucks. And some people might think, all right, well, I have to have this large company, or I have to have a mega carrier behind me. But no, that's the whole purpose of getting your own MC numbers. Like I actually sat down and read Melton's book about how that company got started, and which was really kind of fucked up. He kind of, excuse my language, but he fucked his way into that company and then divorced the lady and got her money. But that's neither here nor there. I just lost my whole train of thought. Oh yeah. In game, you got to have all these things and systems in place to where you don't have to be there in order for it to make money. All you have to do is, make sure the numbers are right. Well, how do I do that without the involvement of a mega carrier and do that under my own MC numbers? Pretty simple. First thing you are going to need is land. I think I watched another YouTuber's, a YouTube trucker's videos, and they said something about zone land. And I actually, would have conversations about stuff like this with other truckers, and 98.9% of them don't have no fucking idea. But the 1% that did, the small 1.9% or 1.1% that did know, they actually knew what they were talking about. And they said you needed at least 10 acres of zone land, scat codes, like 4 or 5 trucks to get dedicated accounts, right? And I can't completely verify all that information because I haven't really gotten to that part of the process yet, but those are some of the things that you will need. I know for a fact you will need the land, so let's just start there. We're going to need 10, 20 acres of land. Going to need a couple trucks, a couple drivers, a dispatcher, and which can also be a driver manager depending on, the scope of their responsibilities. And, maybe a small terminal, put one of those thin garages out somewhere where you can put a couple office chairs and a couple desks in there and some paperwork, some file cabinets, and boom, you have your own trucking company, and you don't have to be there. You know what I'm saying? And like a while back, I made a couple videos about my idea and about the speedometer. I had like this little invention that I have a poor man's patent on, and I gave the idea away. I don't know where that's at right now, but I have the paperwork to prove it to you. Like, I came up with this concept in like 2012, 2013. But, I'm going to get sidetracked again. I ain't even going to go there. But basically what I came up with is the difference between people that are successful being entrepreneurs and the people that aren't is purely execution. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when I say execute, I mean execute from start to finish. Some people can execute from start to midpoint, or start to just before the very end, and not be able to close on the deal, like while they on Shark Tank, or not necessarily make a self-perpetuating trucking company. They got their own authority, or they got their own DOT numbers and run under their own shit. They're completely independent, but they're going to work for the rest of their lives, or they're not putting their money elsewhere, and that's mainly the difference. Like I say, like it's levels to this shit. And going back to my original point, which was probably like 5 minutes ago, like or one of my original points was, Damon, he compared entrepreneurs to being sharks. And I was being smart, like, oh no, I want to be a killer whale, and killer whales are just like oversized dolphins that are just smart ass killing machines. I love orcas, man. Like, that's my favorite sea animal. They are just beasts. But it rang in my head that, yeah, these are when it comes to the entrepreneurship game, the best animal would be a shark, because they're solitary creatures. And the reason I say that is a good analogy is because, sharks, they're very efficient, they're solitary creatures, and they're always moving, even when they're asleep. And when you're an entrepreneur, or you're an entrepreneur that I feel like would be successful, if I saw one, then you're not gonna have a whole lot of friends. Like, for me, this is a lonely game. Even though you gotta have a support system and people that think like you, and you gotta network, like, I just kind of feel like that's just over glorification, because at the end of the day, you got a lot of people that have big dreams, but when it comes to actually doing the hard work, or even just executing, like I say, like, a lot of people ain't even scared of the hard work. It's just their lack of ability to execute. Even if you can get past the romance of entertaining, having your own business and being this boss and this entrepreneur, right? Even if you can get past that and actually get them to do something, there's no guarantee that they'll be able to execute, because they can't see the end game. They can't, there's always something. And these can be your best friends, like the people that you grew up with, but they'll always tell you, at least in my experience, they'll always tell you that motherfucker always up to something. He always hustling. He always trying to figure out a way to do this and figure out a way to do that. You always moving. And in the same breath, while they're telling you that, they don't realize that at some point you're going to move away from them. You're going to move further away from them, because they're content in their little bubble and in their little zone. You know what I'm saying? And, it can cause tension. Like, you may be able to get them high on your entrepreneurial spirit for a little bit. You may be able to sit there and brainstorm, but to actually get to the execution part will be, it'd be like trying to get a glass of ice water in hell. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost impossible. They rather get the endorphins and the bliss of imagining rather than actually getting in and doing it. So, you end up not having a lot of friends. You end up being more alone. And it's kind of messed up. I really don't feel like you get people reaching out to you until you're more successful and you have accumulated things. And then at that point, it's like, well, do you really want to help me, or do you just want to hang around because I can be a vehicle for some type of financial security? You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, the shark is the best creature, to compare to entrepreneurship. They're machines in their fields, but when it comes to, being social, or, passing tests and shit like that, like you can cage an orca. Those can live in captivity, but try putting a great white shark in captivity, and them motherfuckers die almost immediately, because they can't pass the test, so to speak. They can't. They got to be able to move and do what they do as a shark, otherwise they're just gonna die. And just like with most entrepreneurs, they're gonna die in a school system, which I have my own rants about that anyway. So yeah, like, I can see how all of this stuff kind of comes together. And I know I said I'd mention Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, a lot of these shows, they tell you exactly what to do. Like, I don't understand how people don't see it. Like, at this point, I'm just buying the books and stuff to support and maybe pick up some other small little nuggets. And by no stretch of the imagination am I saying I know everything and I know how to do this and I know how to do that, because obviously I'm not multi-million level rich, right? But what I'm saying is, like, Gary Vaynerchuk say he gives a lot of his best information and shit away for free, which he did. Like, he pretty much gave you the blueprint as to what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like he started with he started in his parents' wine business. Then he started wine library, and then he leveraged his influence or his following to make bigger deals. Like a lot of y'all YouTube truckers, y'all got a couple thousand followers. Now whether y'all bought them, I don't know. But if you actually have followers at that level, then you know, once you have followers at that level, then you can leverage some sort of influence. You know what I'm saying? Like once you get to a couple thousand, like fuck YouTube's monetization. You know what I'm saying? Like how does that convert for you? Like some of y'all do the live feeds and y'all get the donations and you know for giving information, which y'all have taken to Patreon or whatever other platform, Instagram. But what else can you do? Like I feel like a lot of y'all are so against working with mega carriers or you know not necessarily doing recommendations or nothing like that, but you know if you have a decent following and these mega carriers need new drivers almost like daily, then why not make some money off of that? Go into their marketing office or wherever they do the road recruiters. Well, I'm an independent trucker, but I have this many followers. I can show you all the statistics, what the average age and sex of my viewers are, how long they watch, where to put your commercials, etc., etc. And then you don't have to rely on YouTube to monetize. They'll pay you X amount of dollars to shout them out or do whatever. You see what I'm saying? That's the exact same thing Gary Vaynerchuk did. He's telling you how to do it. And then when he says just fucking do it, and he does all these business summits and tries to help people figure out, you know, what they should do next in their business, he's just reverse engineering the area that they say that they want to be in and starting with the end game that he thinks that they're telling him where they want to be at, if that made sense. Like they're telling him, all right, well, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to be. And since they're not picking up on reverse engineering the process of where they want to end up at, he's doing that for them, and then while also at the same time assessing if they even have the ability to even get there. It's crazy, man. We in the matrix like a motherfucker. So like when it comes to this YouTube and trucking and stuff like that, man, like I'ma always say it's plenty out here for everybody. You know, it's enough out here for everybody. You know, I wouldn't mind showing rate confirmations. Like I'll show you a couple rate confirmations. Granted, there ain't no personal information in it. You know, like I'm not the one filing and saving the rate confirmations because we're a team, you know what I'm saying? But I have copies of all of them. I mean, I'll work and show y'all a couple, you know, if you follow me. And if you made it this far through the video, shout out to you. I know I only got a couple subscribers right now, but if y'all watching, especially after this long, I want y'all to know that I really appreciate it, and I love the fact that you actually took the time out to subscribe to me. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't have to listen to me. Damon John actually in his book Rise and Grind he said something that I had been saying for years, like ever since high school. Like this concept has just always been obvious to me, that you can get just about everything back, money, car, anything material, you know, but time is something that you'll never get back. Like he says it a little bit different. He says it a little bit more straightforward. He says time you never get back, but you can get everything else back, essentially. I try to be a little bit more poetic with it, and I say from the moment that you're conceived, you begin to die. And you have a finite amount of time on the earth for you to do the things that you want to do. And if you think about it, it's really not that much time. I think the average human lives to be about 68 or something like that. These people watching me do a video, or let's just say the average age is like 80, right? 80 years times 365 days. So no, that can't be right. 80 years times 365 days. That's only 29,200 days. Think about that shit. If you live to be 80, you're only 29,200 days old. That's the amount of time you have to walk on this earth. Now, if you want to break it down into hours and minutes to make yourself feel a little bit better, fine. But that's a sobering number to me. Do you really want to spend it being a slave to your creation, invention, job, or your baby, so to speak, in entrepreneurial terms? Do you want to spend it being a slave to somebody else's job? Or, like, how do you want to live? What determines your quality of life? And I guess I said all that to say, success is purely subjective. Because, even if you are waking up and you have a 9 to 5 that you don't own or have any ownership in, as long as you're happy, and you're just one of those people, then that's fine. But at the same time, if you're wondering, or what the next level is and how do I get there, then I just gave you all the answers, or at least from my point of view. Maybe you can watch their channels and read their books and tell me what you think about them. I do have dyslexia. I haven't been officially diagnosed with it, but I feel like that's one. I don't feel like it's the reason I didn't finish engineering school, but it was the invisible jet. It was Wonder Woman's invisible jet. It's like the invisible vehicle that the instructors used, that the instructors told me to get in, knowing that motherfucker wasn't right, or the flaps wasn't working correctly and couldn't take off the aircraft carrier, and pretty much sent me to my death. And I could further prove that by saying, in a differential equations class that I was taking, I really felt like I didn't have DNF work. So I don't think he expected me to call him on his bullshit, because I walk in class dressed almost the same every day, and I guess if I look like a thug like this, with my do-rag and shit, then that's what I look like. But I approached him after like the second test, which was a little bit before midterms. I say, can you explain why this is a F? I think he gave me. It was either a D or F, but I just didn't feel like it was D or F work. It was at very minimum C, because even though I got the answer wrong, I was still arithmetically sound. And what I mean by that is, I did everything correctly, but since I'm dyslexic, shit flips around. 10 becomes 1, or 12 becomes 21, and I'll fuck up on one line, but I'll still remain constant. That one fuck up will cause the entire problem to be wrong, or I'll forget to carry a negative sign. So it'll be the inverse, or not the inverse. It'll be the negative version. It should be the positive, but I ended up with the negative version type shit. And when I asked him, well, why is this a C paper? And I explained to him like the exact same thing I just explained to you all. He was like, well, just because you got a D or F on a test doesn't mean you don't understand the material. It just means that you just didn't do what you were supposed to, and you didn't do what I asked you to. So basically, what I took that as, I can tell you understand what the fuck you're doing, but since you didn't do the exact thing I told you to do, I'm going to fail you. Sucks, but that's just the reality that I lived in. But you know, I'ma still always love math. You know, I'm not gonna let that affect me in any way, shape, or form. I'ma always be involved in some type of math somewhere, because it's a valuable resource to know how to do math, you know, as a universal language when it comes to being an entrepreneur in business and being able to execute. It's one of the building blocks, the fundamental building blocks of being successful, in my opinion. Yeah, that's all I really got, man. Like I say, I was in my feelings because I was listening to the audio book, and like every other sentence, you know, he would say something. And even though, which is surprising to me, even though I was zoning out and making my own scenarios in my head as I heard him speak, you know, I still managed to ingest a lot of that information and actually regurgitate what I heard. Now, reading, that's something entirely different. I'm a damn good reader, you know what I'm saying? I can read fast, I can read good, and I can read straight. Every now and then I may jump a line or repeat a line, because like I say, I'm dyslexic. But when it comes to retention, reading retention, fuck that. I won't remember it unless I'm having a conversation. You know what I'm saying? You know, I just want, something's wrong with my head. But yeah, man, that's all I really had to say about it, you know, in terms of, you know, this big ball of ideas that I had. And like I said, if you stayed with me this long, shout out, salute. I'm gonna do a little bit more of stuff like this, but I'm gonna try and condense it so I don't have to chop it up into 3 or 4 videos. So if y'all out there and you're really trying to make this trucking thing work, man, trust me, I'm in your corner. And again, thank you to my new subscribers. I really do appreciate that. I love y'all. Thanks for watching, and I'll holler at y'all, man. There's money, baby.